when a person loses a job, there is a grief. It's a grief process. And I am in the middle of that right now. And I am working to acknowledge that when it happens. Because the feels are big some days. Like there's no sugarcoating it. Like there's the anger, there's the sadness, there's missing former coworkers. There are moments where it's like I'm questioning what is my purpose in all this? What do I want to be doing? Like all that has been a part of this journey, and what I'm living through. And the glimmer is I have a great foundation. I have an amazing support system. And I have lots of different options and paths to pursue for my future. And so that's the glimmer, that's the North Star. And what I have been working on is when I do have a big feeling. The other day I was really sad, like just really sad. And so naming that, acknowledging it, letting me feel that, and trying to figure out what I'm sad about allowed me to process that emotion and to kind of express it, to express it in a really profound way that made me feel a lot better. And that's how I am honoring the truth that I'm living right now, and also holding on to the glimmer for the possibility of an amazing future.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our arena where we spend some time wrestling with and conquering all the chaos that is our everyday lives and our work lives and our other parts of our lives. I'm Ed.
And I'm Paul, and this is the Thought Partners podcast. Most conversations that we have in life stay in a safe zone, in a comfortable zone. And our aim here is for that to not be the case, that sometimes you need a sandbox, you need a place where you can get together with friends, you can bring your unfinished thinking, your honest questions, your humility to hold multiple conflicting things to be simultaneously true. And we're not here to be right. We're here to practice, because thinking alongside someone you trust with the mess that we all bring, that we welcome it, and the stakes are real. And it's one of the most underrated things a human can do. So nobody comes here with certainty that needs to be performed. Pull up a chair. The rumble is in progress, and we are welcoming to this episode a friend, a former colleague, an academic, and someone who I learned recently doesn't consider himself to be creative. And I'm really looking forward to learning more about that and maybe challenging it as we learn to challenge, clarify, and co-create. Welcome to our podcast, Ryan Poirier.
It is so wonderful to be with you both today. Thank you so much for inviting me and having me here on the podcast. And I'm actually going to share a little fun fact that neither one of you may realize about me, which is that I was actually a wrestler for 1 year in high school.
May I ask a clarifying question?
Of course, yeah.
When you say wrestler, the first thing that comes into my mind is like WWE, like
Not John Cena, right?
That's John Cena or The Rock.
No.
But then I realized for a split second after that I think you're talking about another kind of wrestling, and it's probably not Greco-Roman or oil wrestling. Can you clarify what you mean by that?
Similar to Greco-Roman, but high school scholastic wrestling. So I was a little 125-pound wrestler my sophomore year of high school. And it was something that I was like, I want to give this a shot and see what the sport is about. And It was a lot of fun. It was probably one of the most challenging physical experiences that I've ever had in my life. But I was in the best shape, and I wasn't a good wrestler. That's probably why it only lasted for 1 year, because I lost a lot. Um, and there were some wins. I pinned a couple of people, but that was very very rare and the exception to my wrestling experience. But I became very adept at one skill. And this probably actually resonates through other aspects of my life. The skill that I was very proficient at was the neck bridge. And what happens in the neck bridge is the wrestler is essentially on the verge of being pinned on the mat by your opponent. And once you're pinned, you're done. That's the whole thing. You lose. They get a lot of points, the whole thing. But if you can neck bridge, so you're basically putting your weight on the back of your head and extending as far as you can so that your shoulders do not touch the mat, then you would lose, but you wouldn't be pinned. And I was very good at neck bridging so that I wouldn't get pinned. I still lost a lot, but it wasn't like the ultimate of losing.
One of the things that we spend a lot of time on here, Ryan, is really digging into kind of the intersection between creativity and career. And as you and I and Paul started, like kind of prep before we went live, you self-identified as a non-creative. And that is contrary to what I believe you to be. It is contrary, I believe, to what Paul believes you to be.
It is.
So I kind of want to start with how we define ourselves professionally versus
Okay.
maybe what other people look at.
Okay.
So what do you
I
think
love
about that?
I love that. Yeah. So the reason why I said that I don't think of myself as a typical creative person is I was thinking about the more traditional art and design professions. Folks who are writing creative work, producing designs, even creating video games or pieces of music, and that's not really my background or repertoire. I aspired to a bit of that. I dabbled in a little bit of theater. I've sung a bit here and there, but all of that, at least for me, has been something kind of on the side and not fully integrated to my professional life and professional career. There are aspects of creativity that have emerged through what I do professionally, but I think of them as more adjacent. Than central to who I am and how I function.
I would, in my experience and my interactions with the handful of humans that I've interacted with out of the 8 billion that exists on the earth, um, that resonates a lot, Ryan. As a matter of fact, I just recently had a conversation with a broker realtor recently who I was talking to as part of my business networking. And I used the word design when I was talking about the work that we do. Now, from their perspective, when they think about estate sales or move management or liquidation, they also don't think about it as the design project. They don't think about it as a creative solution finding project. What they're expecting is that we have plug and play modular ways to go about this, and it's either this, or this. And they just want to know, like, what's the price, how long is it going to take, and what's included, right? And when I come to the table with language and articulate what we do as creative design in a business aspect, it sometimes confuses them. He literally
Yeah.
stopped me like, can you explain what you mean by design a little bit more? And so it is, once again, really interesting to me to hear that mindset of separating out business and service transactions from creative design, which is sort of where I mix things up and I like to do mashups.
I will say my thinking about that was challenged in February in particular. I was meeting with a colleague who is this incredible feminist scholar, and she was talking about how she works with students through design projects, and frames that within the context of doing research. And that was something that like I just hadn't put the two of those elements together before in my brain. But then as we started to talk about things in the projects that her students were working on, it became very clear that the design process and the research process are parallel. And I did find myself in like I see myself as part of that process and doing that professionally all the time.
Do you think that there is a current friction in the marketplace, whether it be in business writ large or in academia, where there's a call to action to be more creative, to be more innovative, to be more, you know, trying stuff, right? And all of these things that we're talking about that we often think about as creative or design endeavors, and design thinking is one of the drivers. And yet the hard part is the actual application and the practice of that, because there's still some sort of missing bridge. There's a missing connection between what it means to show up in that way of innovative creativity and to show up for work, as it were.
Yeah. What you're saying, Paul, resonates so much because for me at least, I think that's the human resistance to what we're seeing from artificial intelligence. You know, like AI can do so many things, but AI struggles to really create and produce original work and original thinking. And I think that what you're tapping into is there's some element of discourse happening in our world that is saying if we are more creative, if we are more original, unique, artistic, whatever that is, then it's something that AI can't reproduce and replicate, at least at this point, in the way that humans do. And that there's a real desire and hunger for people to do that and figure out where they fit in that space. So I think you're tapping into something.
If our listeners are listening sometime in late 2026 or maybe in 2027, listening back to this episode, I'll just say right now, everything changes by the day in the world of AI. So these thoughts are thoughts here in April of 2026. But what I hear from that, Ryan, is so much about AI being really great and fast at summarizing, replicating, doing repeatable tasks, able to help us um, produce, I guess, writings or even drawings now faster, but using what's already there, using the connections that are already built, using the systems that are in place, and that what humans bring to that is the kind of creativity that it just doesn't have on its own yet.
Yeah. Or the ability, I think, to combine ideas that may not necessarily go together. I think human beings do that in a unique way that AI doesn't do quite yet. Not at least at the same level of proficiency.
Tell me a little bit about your journey with AI. And when I say journey with AI, I mean, we're like 4 years into having Chat GPT in the world, and everything is there's a lot of debate and conversation around AI. How are you engaging with it and using it?
Similar to yourself, Paul, I'm also a graduate student. I've returned to the classroom to pursue a master's degree in marriage and family therapy to get a license to become a clinical therapist. And it's been interesting being kind of on the other side of the desk, so to speak, as a student, and seeing how my faculty are requesting that we do not use AI, and the steps that they've taken to try and prevent us from using it, and just telling us that it's we shouldn't be using it at all. We've been asked to do a lot more video posts in our asynchronous discussions, which I suppose someone could still read something that AI generated, but we're doing that. But I do use it in a number of different ways. So one of the things that I find incredibly helpful is having it summarize readings and creating reading guides for me. And also, like, I'm pretty early in my degree program, but I know that one of the future hurdles that I'll have to, you know, meet and exceed is a licensure test. So at this point, when I'm having it creating reading guides from the assigned materials, I'm saying, please flag areas that you think that I'll eventually be tested on for an exam, for a licensure exam. And then I'll go back to that and create test questions that I can practice from that really will help me to get ready for that experience. Ed,
All
you're
right,
smiling.
I'm pushing. All right, I'm going to push pause here. Literally circle back around to you not calling yourself creative. Uh, this is exactly the definition of creativity from my perspective, in that you are solving a novel problem with a novel solution. Like, that is an unintended intended use of AI perfectly from my perspective. I'm
Okay.
curious your response.
I accept that. You're right. I don't think of those things in that way, I guess. I just think of them as problem solving. But every problem solving involves an element of design and creativity. So, yeah,
So
I
we've
accept that.
convinced you that you are creative.
This is this is a whole Johari window
For
conversation. If
real.
anyone's ever heard of the Johari window of like how one sees oneself, how others see us, how we don't realize that we're seen, and that sort of
See
thing.
season 1, episode 1.
I remember that actually from
This is
season one,
that's a
episode one.
whole peek into the Ryan Poirier uh, uh, window, the Johari window into Ryan. Ryan, tell us a little bit of what you've been up to and what's been on your mind. What sort of um, things have you been thinking about? How have you been thinking, feeling, and experiencing the world recently?
Gosh, Paul, that is such a great question. So I currently find myself in a little bit of a career transition, which I think that you and Ed could relate to at this season of life. Um, and I'm trying to put the different pieces together to think about the arc of my career in terms of where I've been, what experiences have I had that have been foundational to the development of my skills and my knowledge and my identity as a professional. And then what do those things mean as I think about future paths that I want to consider and pursue?
One of the things that stands out is you get to this point of redefining your professional, in quotation marks, career life, because as Paul and I have talked about a number of times, you can't actually separate professional and career from
Totally.
life.
Yeah.
You can try, but it's probably not going to work out real great in the end. But one of the things that I think is core to that is learning to tell your story.
Yeah.
And I think you're in that first spot of trying to figure out what are the details that need to be in my story. I'm curious if what you're thinking about in terms of storytelling and thinking about that shaping the future type conversation.
Yeah, and that's I was actually thinking about there's some scholarship by I'm gonna mess up her first name, but her last name is Abera, and she talks about the use of narrative and storytelling to actually construct your identity as a professional and how that process of storytelling is really formative and important as you shape who you're going to be in the future, particularly as you continue to advance in your career and as your identity as a professional. Um, so I was reading about that and thinking about that, and it touches upon a whole bunch of different things for me. I stumbled my way into psychology, um, which like I didn't I wasn't a
I can
psychology
relate.
major. I wasn't a psychology major as an undergrad by any means, and then I pursued my master's in higher ed and student affairs, and in that program there were a lot of classes that focused on human development and the development of traditional age college students, 18 to 24. But they never really labeled it as psychology. And so when I thought about what to do academically after that, I encountered educational psychology, and that's really where I took my first psychology classes. It wasn't until I was a doctoral student. But little, I came to find out that there was a lot of psych infused within the programs I had been in previously. I just didn't know it. But I've come to love psychology. I love learning about memory and emotions and identity and development, and all of that has really informed who I am, what I teach, the different roles that I look for, and how I lead.
Well, and that brings us right to the crossroad of how you and I originally met.
Yeah.
Teaching in Ohio at a system that had a bunch of different campuses. We wound up crossing paths, and the first impression that I distinctly remember is the way you connected with people, not only just in the classroom, like your students loved you. They still to this day, I think, love you. I'm sure you have students that still reach out and say, "Hey, Dr. Ryan, that was my favorite class." Like, there's something to that I think you carried forth into your leadership career as well. I'm curious if when you look at that, you look at all of the ways you defined yourself previously, like, what are you carrying over into the next phase? Definitely.
Yeah, as a leader, I put people first, and a lot of times that's jargony and it's just a buzzword. But for me, what that means is I want to
Ryan,
get to.
you're a jargon-free zone, so no, it's fine.
Oh, good. I don't like
Continue,
jargon.
continue.
I don't like jargon at all. Anyway, for me, what that means is I want to get to know people as people first before an employee or a role or a title, and find out what's going on in their lives. That's what's affecting their universe, because all of that's gonna emerge in work eventually, one way or the other, right? And if I get to know who you are as a person, what's going on in your life, and we handle that, then we can focus on what does it mean to be productive in the role that you were hired for. How do we establish trust? Because in my mind, and what we know from research and literature, especially from Carol Dweck, is mistakes are the best teachers. But if you are working on a team or an environment where you are scared to make mistakes and you're not doing that, then you're like that stifles so much. And so as a leader, like that's what I want to encourage. I want to get to know my people. I want to establish trust, and then we can work on all the other things that have to be achieved. And so that's carried with me for a long time, and still a core part of who I am and how I work, how I live.
It sounds like you've been inside of systems where there's a lot of friction.
I have, yeah, I have experienced
You're
that.
and I only say that in honor of the idea of what to do going forward, right? Like what's the next chapter? What are we aiming for? And how do we um what did you say you said um what do they mean as related to the future path is what you said.
Mm.
What do they mean? Creating meaning, again, one of the things that humans do, stories that we tell, whether out loud or in our heads. are the meaning that we make. And I feel like there's even friction with even saying your career. You talked
Yeah.
about pulling into your career. You said that this was about like a transition in career. And I'm not sure if I fully understand always what someone means nowadays when they say career. Is it still attached to some old idea of what a career is? And is it attached to an old model of the career ladder? Is it a different framing on career, like a rock climbing wall instead? Or are we really just talking about like, how do we find more joy and peace and happiness as we journey through life? And one of the things that we do is work and make money. I'm not sure
Yeah.
where it lands with you, but I'm really curious to know what you think about when you say um, that you're wondering what the career identity as a professional and what it means as related to the future.
I think that I'm wrestling with that question right now. That's the honest answer. That it's not clean, it's not simple, it's not linear. It's messy. And that's kind of that. It's a roller coaster ride too. Like there are days where it's like, okay, I know what I'm doing. The path is very clear. Like this is the objective. And then there are other days where it's like, yesterday, for example, someone like threw a totally out of left field idea for me to think about career wise that I hadn't never entertained. And even the idea, I'm like, whoa, I don't know about that. But then I'm like, that I I could do that. Like, but what does that mean? Like, so yeah.
So Paul is one that has been instrumental in helping for me to shape my kind of future path. And the one thing that I go back to, Paul, on a number of occasions is our conversation about professional values, and do those line up with that vision that you're heading toward? And that was one of the moments kind of in the space where you are, where it was like, okay, these are the things that I want to be true and honor, but these are not the things necessarily that have been the case, the reality of the places that I've been before. I don't know how that kind of echoes for you.
When you work at one place for a very long time, then you experience lots of different phases of that organization, and kind of sustaining change shows you different chapters within an organizational history. And so I think that there have been moments where the values have totally aligned, right? And things are great. And then there are other times where there are transitions, there are changes, and the culture shifts. And sometimes you don't even realize when it's happening, right? But then you're like, whoa, that doesn't feel right. There's a misalignment of professional values in that context. And those are the moments that challenge, at least challenge me, to try to figure out, what am I going to do? Am I going to survive this situation? Am I going to endure that? Or am I going to make a change and a shift, either in the way I work, the way I connect with people, or the things I do outside of work that would fulfill me in ways that work may not be doing in that moment? That's kind of how I've adapted to that.
Yeah,
How
and
about you all? How do you deal
I
with that?
love the I love that you use the word survive, right? Am I going to just survive in this? And I think that that's an option. It's a possibility, and it's one that a lot of folks choose. I tend to lean more towards, what does it look like to thrive rather than
Yeah.
survive. I
Yeah.
tend to look for ways in which we can take the fact that we're all trapped in these meat suits and we're trying to figure out what the hell is all of this that is going on around us, and find a way to thrive, find a way to have joy. And I think one of the things that I've always admired about you in the years that I've known you is that I notice that whatever the situation you're in, you do look for the glimmer. You tend to look for the hope in the situation. And you don't ignore the challenges, but you also don't center it. And that's been sort of just over time a very broad brushstroke how I think about you professionally, and as a human in general. I wonder if that resonates with you, and I wonder what that looks like on um, this meaning on the future path,
Yeah.
whatever that is. Even if it's a curveball or out of left field, where are you finding glimmers?
So when a person loses a job, there is a grief. It's a grief process. And I am in the middle of that right now. And I am working to acknowledge that when it happens. Because the feels are big some days. Like there's no sugarcoating it. There's the anger, there's the sadness, there's missing former coworkers. There are moments where it's like I'm questioning what is my purpose in all this? What do I want to be doing? Like all that has been a part of this journey, and what I'm living through. And the glimmer is I have a great foundation. I have an amazing support system. And I have lots of different options and paths to pursue for my future. And so that's the glimmer, that's the North Star. And what I have been working on is when I do have a big feeling. The other day I was really sad, like just really sad. And so naming that, acknowledging it, letting me feel that, and trying to figure out what I'm sad about allowed me to process that emotion and to kind of express it, not kind of, to express it in a really profound way that made me feel a lot better. And that's how I am honoring the truth that I'm living right now, and also holding on to the glimmer for the possibility of an amazing future.
So my initial response to that is I know traditionally there have been people that have looked at psychology as like you're going and you're dredging up negative feelings and you're dwelling in it and you're focused on all the things that your parents screwed you up with. But what I hear from you is more of the positive end of using the craft that you have chosen to equip yourself with to kind of turn it on into a mirror and look at it and say, how can I use this as a tool to get better, to improve my situation, to acknowledge and then move past this? That I think is one of the things that we go back to a conversation a little bit ago that people just connect with when it comes to you is you live your subject. You are that and many other things. It's just my initial.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you.
We keep saying the word acknowledge, and I think it's a great word here, and I appreciate it so much, Ryan, when you say like, just acknowledge it. I feel sad and get yourself to acceptance. But there's a phrase that I train myself on, I use over and over again. It's one of the things I have on my desk here to remind me. I've probably said it on the podcast once or twice or 100 times, and that is to acknowledge, accept, and address.
Yeah.
So I hear the acknowledgement, I hear that accepting, and then addressing it, um, for whatever the purpose is. And in this case, I think the purpose is um, to understand that wound and to address it in some way, whether it be to help it heal, to help the next one not hurt as much. I'm not sure exactly, but in what ways do you think about that address part after acknowledging and accepting?
Yeah, the address and express, and this is actually probably where the creativity comes into play, right? And I I have been part of a small group of guys who are putting together a new singing group here in my town, and it's been a lot of fun doing that. And I was really excited. The same day that I woke up and just felt really sad. I was really excited because that night we had rehearsal, and I knew I was going to get together with a group of friends. We were going to sing. And so that addressing is also expressing. And I think that that is where creativity needs to be a part of my life, and probably in a way that, I mean, that example is a very overt example, a very explicit, direct way, but I think that I need to think about that more. How can I use creativity to express, to address the heavy emotions that I may be feeling, and that all of us feel? I think that creativity can be a really um, healing, a way for us to heal the wounds that we're experiencing, and recovering from.
Yeah. So
Do either of you use a creative outlet when you're going through something?
We have a podcast.
This is true. Duh.
every once in a while, we get together and hit record and talk to each other for an hour.
No, but I would say, like, for the last year and a half, I've been kind of on my own kind of journey to find more creative outlets and to use that side of myself a lot more frequently. That's something that Paul, like when Paul and I first had the conversation about starting the Thought Partners podcast, it was, hey, I have this idea. I can't think of anybody else that I would rather do it with. So go ahead and say yes, because I'm not going to give you an opportunity not to. And I really just need to do this thing, to do this creative adventure, which I'm fortunate enough that Paul, even though he didn't have the opportunity to say no, did say yes. Um, but so that, like, that's an example. Like, my background, I think we talked about this before.
Yeah,
It's
you're
an
a
MFA
creative
in creative
writer.
writing. Nobody cares about that other than you all, but and me, because that was a crowning achievement in my creative life. But it's just, I'm always looking for ways to put some sort of presentation together or put some sort of performance together in some way to go do the things that I do. And this is one of them. Presenting at conferences, I love doing that kind of stuff. Bringing together groups of people and saying, hey, I don't know what we're going to do with this yet, but darn it, we're going to figure out something to do with this project. I have so many projects folders on my computer. It's probably ridiculous at this point, but Paul, I don't know what your thoughts are on
Well, one of the things,
creativity and outlet.
one of the things that I do, Ryan, outside of more, as you said, ways, which would be seeking out opportunities to perform or accepting opportunities to perform, is to remind myself to play. I have to remind myself that as creative and innovative and fun for me it is to um, work on my coursework and mash up ideas and explore AI and even do a little bit of creative writing myself, or even if it's just journaling. Sometimes just playing is the unlock. And I remember it too late when I'm just in the middle of playing. Like I'll go and just do something fun just to do something fun, or I'll go on a bike ride, or and I know that that doesn't sound like play; it sounds like exercise. But there's something about reminding myself that sometimes that's where I'm able to build new connections between things, or to have things come to light a little bit better, is when I'm not working on. What are your thoughts about that?
So the example that I was thinking about, Paul, and I'm surprised it's taken me this long to talk about food, because I love food. I love to talk about food. So so I had made this it was a combination of like spinach and panko and garlic baked in the oven just as like a side to have with dinner, and it flopped. It didn't taste right. The texture was off. It was like eh. And so my husband John was like, why don't you do a sauce? And I found myself in the kitchen last night just playing around with ingredients, making a sauce to go on top of this, and it sold it. And I was having so much fun just being like, oh yeah, a little bit of this and this, this, and like it was yummy. So yeah, I think there are all different ways that we can play and have fun that sometimes are really unexpected.
What's this
Okay,
direction?
okay. So I met with my faculty advisor to talk about kind of my career aspirations as a therapist and what I should do. And she
So,
told me I
so
should work for
for the
sorry, Ed.
record, it was tell me what you want to be when you grow up.
A bit. It was, here I am. I'm in this circumstance where I do not have a current job and I'm looking for something new. What do you recommend that would align with my aspirations to earn this marriage and family therapist degree, etc.? And she told me I should work at a hospital. And I was like, huh? Like I've never worked at a hospital at all. And so she said, no, find a hospital nearby that has a psychiatric unit. They will be looking for employees and it will be great on the ground experience that you would never ever get in your practice, but that would help inform everything that you do. And then the other piece that she was thinking about was really practical, is that I need to get so many clinical hours under my belt in order to even be qualified to take the licensure exam. And so searching for a place where I can have on-site learning is, something I got to figure out. And so if I were to get a job at a hospital that had a psych unit, that could also lead to access to that location as somewhere where I could actually get clinical hours down the road.
So you're on a path. So you're on a path, and there's obviously been some changes. So things are a little fuzzy, and you're trying to figure out like which direction do I go. And one of those, it sounds like you're kind of converging. It doesn't sound like divergent. It sounds a little convergent on being a therapist, right? A clinical practicing marriage and family therapist. Is that right?
Yep,
Am I on track
exactly.
here? Okay.
Yeah.
So great. That sounds great. That sounds fun. We need those in the world. And have you heard of Ikigai? Do you know about Ikigai, the Japanese
No.
concept about like find something that you're good at, that the world needs, that someone will pay you for?
I'm going to
We're
look
gonna
this up.
Yes, look it up. Look up Ikigai, and and I guess what I want to pull you back down to and get a little bit more clarity on, because that sounds great and it's a viable career. I'm sure you can make money doing it if that's what it's all about, but I don't think that's what it's all about. What is it that's attractive to you? How have you written your letter to yourself in a year yet? That's a great exercise, by the way.
I have
I love
not done that yet. I
what
probably need to.
what's going to what it's going to look like this time next year, or what what the blue sky thinking would be like. What would you be doing? Who are you with? How are you spending your time? uh, and all of that's inclusive of work and money. Of course that can be included, but it's not the only thing. You're not just narrowing down to that. So I'm curious, what attracts you to that idea, that, I mean, the meaning of being a family or marriage therapist?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that has held true throughout my career is that I am a collaborative problem solver. That is something that I've done in many different roles over a long period of time. And so that's kind of a core skill that I know I bring to different situations. And whether that's in a large team setting, even an institutional setting, that's something I can do. And so in the context of therapy, I think that I can help either couples, families, or individuals solve some of the problems that they're going through in a way that is really from a foundation of it's there's a helping orientation that I have, but it's also genuine curiosity. It's not about judgment of the circumstances. It's really accepting whoever is in front of me and helping them on their path and their journey. And that's something that I've also done as a teacher in a classroom. That's how I approach any instruction. I mean, the difference is whether it's because I've kind of been thinking about these ideas, whether it was how I was trained as a researcher or how I conduct myself in a classroom, right? In a research setting, you have your research goals or your questions that you're trying to answer. In a classroom, they're the course learning outcomes you're trying to achieve. Within a therapy situation, at least the way I'm starting to conceptualize it, it's about the clients who you're working with and their goals. So it isn't some external thing that's even me driven at all. It's them. And so that kind of reshifting of the problem, I find fascinating, and I'm looking forward to learning more about that and how to do that in a way that's really proficient and that can help.
You do it, by the way, already.
Thanks.
You are a creative problem solver. You do show up in that way. You have helped people, you continue to help people. I'm curious though, and I'm gonna ask you to just get a little bit selfish here and
Okay.
be a little bit messy. What does it do for you? Like, not everybody, I mean, I guess everybody might say that they like helping. Like, who's not gonna say I like helping people? I mean, that's my meaning, that's my purpose, that's what I do in life, and you
At the
are
end of the
very
day, it's
good at
about
it.
X.
You are very good at it already, regardless of the job or the title, or whether it's as a teacher or a therapist or even as a coach, because what I'm hearing you talk about is similar to a coach, right? We find out what
Yeah.
their issue is and we deal with their issue. What is it that it does for you, though? Tell me a little bit about that.
Oh gosh, I haven't thought.
Because adulting is hard. You had said, like, it's so funny. You were saying,
It is
like,
hard.
oh, I meet people without judgment of the circumstances, and if it's
It's the
this,
best of my
it's
ability.
easy.
We
If
all have
that, it's
bias,
easy.
but
But adulting is hard, and I can see, and this also clues me in. Your friend who mentioned, or whoever it was that mentioned the hospital, right? What better place to be able to meet people in circumstances where they need someone to not judge them and creatively solve problems, right? I think I see the connection there in a lot of ways. And since you're going more clinical, it makes a lot of sense. But back to my original question, let's get a little selfish, and I want to hear from Ryan. What does it do for you when you're able to achieve or accomplish, or even when you fail at those creative collaborations where you're trying to help people and you're curious?
it brings me a lot of pride and joy. I mean, truly, like it does. That's my spark. When and it's the process, probably even more so than the journey. Like I like being in it. Um and there are moments where that's messy and it's hard and you got tough conversations, but the goal and the ability to work with people and find joy in that is really what I love. And it's when that joy's gone that's where, like, that's when the spark diminishes in me, right? And so that's when I have to figure out, okay, where is it? Where do I find that joy again? What is the thing that's going to bring me some happiness, so that we can play, so that we can explore, so that we can work hard, really hard, to get the job done and see it through to the other side. That's what brings me a lot of joy.
Anything from the jester?
The just perspective. One of the things that I think you and I, Ryan, have talked about a number of times is perspective. And we've known each other a long time.
Yeah.
For those listeners who've not had the opportunity to know you for a long time, that is one of the defining things that I think is part of being with and around Ryan, is the opportunity to really look at complex situations with a lot of moving parts and be able to come out with something that is interesting, something that is thoughtful and thought-provoking. And as you sit here and talk through that joy question especially, like, I can see that. I can see those pieces coming together, and I can see that you're going to have an impact on a lot more people than you even have to this point. And it also secondarily reminds me of something you said a few minutes ago. You said collaborative problem solving is one of your driving things, one of your key skills, one of those things that you really connect with. And I have a little story about that.
Oh boy. Okay.
So, Ryan, you and I were tasked one time in our career years ago with getting together with some like-minded and otherwise minded individuals to create a brand new direction for a program. Do you remember that?
I do. I remember that fondly, actually.
Okay. So, picture this boardroom style table, bunch of people around these chairs, and we had somebody up kind of leading the discussion, the brainstorming. There were so many different ideas flowing. And during this process, you and I were called out and told that we could never sit next to each other again.
We were.
You remember that?
We were. I do remember that.
It is the
we were
perfect
the,
balance.
we were the troublemakers in like the back of the
We
class.
were the troublemakers. I will forever remember that at any kind of event going forward, I'm not allowed to sit by Ryan because we were having the great old time and still doing
We
the
had too
work,
much joy.
but we had too much joy in the process. Your response, sir?
It was a lot of fun. And I do think like it's a great story because it reminds me that there are moments at work where we just take ourselves so seriously and like
Right?
that. Yeah, like we had fun.
Well, and even the fact that you were told you weren't allowed to sit next to each other anymore. And how many people are you not allowed to sit next to anymore? I'm sure it's a lot.
I'm not going to answer that. Maybe the catalyst is me. Maybe
Because
looking
of
at
the
the
fun part, right? Like
looking
I
at the
love
black
this.
mirror that I have in my pocket. Maybe this is the problem.
So I don't know what kind of practices you want to share with our audiences, Ryan, to keep yourself sane. But one of the ways that I keep myself sane is I have little reminders in my workspace that I keep around me. One of which is acknowledge, accept, address, and then this card right here that I just picked up. It says, "What would this look like if this were fun?" I come
I
back
love
to
that.
that a lot, and I have to remind myself a lot because I get I get pulled into the river, as I call it sometimes, and I forget to play. I forget that it can be fun, and I want to bring forward a notice, if you don't mind.
Yeah. I'm writing down
To
workplace reminders, by the way, because that is not one of my practices right now. And I love it because I do get pulled into the river.
Oh, it's so easy. For me, it's so easy to get pulled into the river that like I have my main phone screen is my, whatever mantra I'm working on at that time, and I have my little notes around my desk and my workplaces that remind me of the things that I need to practice
Yeah.
a little
Yeah.
bit more. But I want to call something out. Early in our conversation, you said that things were a little messy, right? And that it's hard, and there's transition, and there's been job loss, and there's searching, and there are moments of sadness, and you actually use the word messy. Do you remember that?
Yeah. I do remember that. I do remember that.
And then when you were just talking about the joy that comes from what you do, regardless of the job, but the way in which you help people, is you said that the process is often messy And you exactly said, I like being in it.
I do. I do.
And so I just want to notice that in the midst of your own messy, that you don't always, it doesn't always feel good, and it's not always nice, and your practice of acknowledging and accepting and addressing those feelings, there's a part of you that likes being in the messy, and I want you to remember that as you continue to go forward. And one of the things I want to ask you about is, who are you talking to? Because these exercises that I've brought up very casually and quickly here, like writing the letter to yourself a year from now, and understanding your why, taking a look at Ikigai, doing a Johari window, all of these because Ed and I, we like to be practical in this space too. And when our
Yeah.
listeners listen, we want them to have things to go chew on or play with, or some sort of model, because I don't believe in any singular model being the answer, because there's so many ways to get there, but it's the principles that the principles are few, but the models are many. And for me, there's something about the principle of rumbling in a space where it's okay to be messy, and it's okay to put it out there so that you can discover a little bit of what it is that sparks the joy. So I want to ask you, what parts of this messy experience that you're in right now do you like being?
I love the thought about the possibility, right? There's no box right now, that like it is an open plane that is worth exploring. To Ed, to your point, like there's so many projects and ideas that I have to work on and to think about for the future, and not a week goes by where I don't think of at least three more of, oh, I should be
I
doing
feel like
this.
you and I have a half a dozen that overlap at this point anyway from
Yeah, we,
just quick conversations.
yep, yep, truly. So like that idea about the realm of possibility is really exciting. The other thing is that I now have time and space to do things that otherwise I didn't before. And I am cherishing that and loving it. Whether it's just grabbing a cup of coffee with a friend that I didn't have time to do before, or going for a run in the morning because I don't have a meeting to be at. Like these things are wonderful and awesome. I'm sleeping a lot more. I am focusing on being more present, on taking care of myself. All these things are a top priority for me at this point, this moment, that I'm really taking a lot of joy in and loving. So there is all that's really great stuff that
Write
is
it all
awesome.
down. I want you to remember that when you're back to having a calendar full. I want you to
Yeah.
remember that when you are in the midst of whatever this next thing is, this next job, and whatever it was that made you somewhere along the way believe that you didn't have time for those other things before. I want you to remember what juice they give you so that you prioritize them a little bit more going forward. I think it's a great learning.
Yeah, truly a great lesson. I agree with you.
So I'm gonna take some different threads here and we're gonna weave them together into
Okay.
something
Ed's
for
gonna
the
synthesize. I
listeners
love
to
it.
do. So I'm gonna synthesize. I'm gonna take that piece of that, identifying those joy pieces, those positive pieces along the current path. Let's weave that into the letter or text message that you would send to yourself a year from now. If a letter is too much, is too daunting, we're not doing that. Text message. I don't care if it's like a quick social media post that you would send to
It's
yourself.
an update, a peek, right? Like, and
Yeah.
honestly, like a lot of what I know about Ryan is from a lot of social media. So in my mind, he's traveling all over the world. He's eating the most delicious food. He's got the life of whatever our Instagram life is that
Yeah.
curated part. We don't see all the parts behind it.
So that message that you are sending to yourself a year from now, to be read and interpreted by that year from now person, what is that's driving your joy or your happiness or that you're really connected to? What is that one thing that you're going to change? and you get a wild card.
So I got a wild card.
Whatever it is. I want to empower that future self of you to not know exactly that there's one X, one Y, and one Z, but it's going to be an X, a Y, and maybe a C. I don't know. So that's what the structure should be. That should take a few minutes, think about that, send that virtually, write it down, put it in your notes app, however it is you communicate with your future self, which if you don't know how to do that yet, reach out. But otherwise,
I will say one thing at this point in time as I continue to reflect on what you asked. One of the things that I've been thinking a lot about is how I want to work for a really mission-centered, mission-driven organization. That's something that in my mind is really important as I think about the future. But the conversation that we've had today has I've had an epiphany. And yeah, there's been an epiphany as
all
a
right, we
result
got to
of our
get this
conversation.
on. We definitely got to record this because this is our first thought partner's epiphany.
Tell me more. Say more.
So it's the mission of the institution wherever is important, right? You've got to align with that. But what I'm hearing from you all and what I'm learning about myself is my own internal personal mission of what drives me is more important than anything external. And it's that internal, prioritization of what's important for me. Is something that I need to identify, I need to write down, and I need to listen to so that I don't forget that for the future.
And when you say more important, I want to clarify that we don't mean more important as though the other things are less important. It's more important than maybe you're giving it.
Right.
Kind of
to this. Yeah.
Your energy is more important than the energy that you're allotting to it.
Because it's integrity, right? If I can be true to what's important to me, then the rest of it's gonna fall in place and it's all gonna align. The stars will line up. But if I lose my own integrity, then forget.
If you just grab onto the first thing that comes along because of you can count on a paycheck every other week, and you're not thinking about those alignment pieces, I think you're cutting off your nose to spite your face. I think you're missing out on the opportunity to find those places. And when you say like, oh, the mission, everybody has missions on the wall. The culture is the way that it shows up and the way that it is in the space. And I think that as you go into this space, remembering also to remind yourself that these are tries, these are experiments, these are ways that you are going about figuring out what's next. And if it's not working, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. You're not being kicked off the ladder. That's not it. That's not the thing.
Agreed.
That's what I'm.
Agreed.
So, Ryan, we've taken a winding path to get to this moment, but I wanted to just go ahead and step back and say, hey, is there anything that you want to introduce in this conversation? Is there anything that you want to drive forward?
I want to just drive forward the fact that the two of you have created this space for thought partnership and for dialogue and to talk about things that people may not necessarily want to talk about all the time or that they feel uncomfortable with, and that you've created a space where we can do that in a really constructive, reflective, and caring way. So thank you both. Appreciate that. Not enough of that exists in our world today.
Thank you. And I hope that people who do listen or take it in or even consider it or listen to a little bit of it, if all it does is spark them to talk to somebody else in a way that is a little bit safer to be messy and acknowledge and rumble and create a next try without being too hard on themselves, because that part that you talked about showing up, not judging the circumstances, but remembering that context matters. And for ourselves, we have to remember not to judge ourselves
Yeah.
in the same way.
Yeah. We often hold on to the negativity way more than the positivity.
See, it is a human condition, I think.
Yeah.
It's just natural. It's easier.
Inertia.
Yep. There you go.
Yeah.
Humans
Ryan,
are interesting creatures, aren't they, Ryan? We
Always.
human.
Makes it fun.
Paul, you want to wind us down, sir?
Yeah, it's always it is always a pleasure to spend time with you, Ryan. This time is true as every other time since that first time I met you. I think on the 6th floor of an office building.
Yeah.
Maybe 10 years ago, something like that. It was a while ago. Maybe it was, yeah. So
Yeah, it probably was
anyway,
about 10 years ago.
every time I spend time with you, it is a wonderful experience. I'm glad for it. And this particular conversation was a particular glimmer in my day. And so I thank you. Thank you for your kind words. Thank you for your heart and your brain and all that you bring to the world. And I want to just remind you and all of our listeners to please take care of yourself and each other. And thanks for joining us.
Thank you both so much for having me. It's been an honor.
Join the Rumble. The Thought Partners podcast is now on Substack. Head over to substack.com @Thought Partners Podcast or scan the QR code on screen. This is your chance to interact with the show, complete some of the great exercises we design in real time, and post your thoughts about what upcoming episodes could look like. At the intersection of creativity and career, it's the Thought Partners Podcast.